In the past 2 decades, Chinese contemporary art has taken the world by storm. But under Xi Jinping, many claim it's become a weapon for propaganda, and those who push political boundaries face intimidation and censorship, even far away in Australia.
Unfortunately, our society has been deeply corrupted and manipulated by China's influences and interference.
Australia has long suspected the Chinese government of organising assaults on human rights protesters, coercing politicians and carrying out massive cyber attacks. Now artists are calling out China's repressive reach.
I simply just do not have exhibition here because a lot of people are afraid of China's pressure.
It's literally the censorship extending to here, to me, right, towards me.
It's a really concerning development to me because that is a matter of democracy and sovereignty.
In the first of a 2-part investigation, 101 East asks, is China silencing artists in Australia? He's a bad boy of Chinese-Australian artists, daring to poke the panda, with images ridiculing China's President Xi Jinping.
The face of Xi Jinping is not just a face of person. It's a tool for Chinese propaganda. It's a tool to making him like some kind of god in China. Using satire and humor is a way to deconstruct its authority. And in a way, saying the leader of the Chinese government should be criticized and treated as a flawed human being like all of us. And this is ultimately the message that I want to deliver.
Going by the pseudonym Badiucao, it's a message he knew from personal experience could only be delivered from self-imposed exile. His grandfather was a filmmaker who was sent to a labour camp in the 1950s after the Communist Party swept to power and began persecuting artists and intellectuals.
My grandpa actually died there. That in China, being an artist is always a risk unless you choose to censor yourself. So that finally made me leave for good, to live in a safe and free country.
But 15 years after arriving in Australia, he says death threats are now part of his everyday life.
I think most of them are organized by trolls from the Chinese government. I receive cyber attacks time to time. There are possible home invasion. I do have experience being followed by multiple, possibly Chinese agents.
To protect himself, he lives at a secret location in Australia's southeastern city, Melbourne, and fiercely guards his real identity. A former law student and primary school teacher, he built his profile as an artist on social media, posting work protesting against China's human rights abuses, including the death of long-imprisoned Nobel Peace Prize activist Liu Xiaobo, the persecution of China's minority Muslim group, the Uyghurs, and a performance piece where he dared to pose as Tiananmen Square massacre hero Tank Man and inspired his more than 120,000 followers across the world to do the same, their images going viral. For years, he hid his face behind a mask.
I know that if the Chinese government knowing my identity, they'll not just pose a threat to me in person, but also harming anyone connect to me.
And that's exactly what happened in the lead up to his first international exhibition in Hong Kong in 2018.
So this is probably the portrait that got me into trouble during my...
Featured on the poster for the exhibition, the portrait melds the faces of Xi Jinping and Hong Kong's former chief executive, Carrie Lam, who cracked down on pro-democracy protesters and introduced repressive national security laws.
This is my metaphor to showing the bankrupting of one country, two systems. Wow. There's no longer two systems, there's just one oppression, which is from Beijing. Obviously, anything that mocking the image or the dictator in China is an absolute red line that you don't cross. Otherwise, automatically you become a target for the party.
When China moved on him, a documentary captured his desperate phone calls to organisers of his Hong Kong exhibition.
Yeah, what's going on?
So, okay, they know who I am, they contact my family.
Oh.
They want me to pull out the show. Otherwise, they'll do something to me, not to my family. A couple days before the opening, my relatives in Shanghai got taken to the police station by the National Security Police. And a message was sending to me saying, I must stop making art that criticizes the Chinese government, or quote unquote, there will be no mercy to me, nor to my family. And they also said they are going to send in the police to Hong Kong, which is a great alarm to everyone who's helping me in that exhibition.
Badiucao felt forced to cancel the exhibition and sever all ties with China.
What has it meant for your family?
Well, this is the hardest question, because what I can only do is actually cutting off my connection with China. Only when I become a stranger to those people, then they will be less harassed. Because in the end of the day, the Chinese government want to get to me via them. And the message that I send to the Chinese government, if you want to stop me, come in person.
Now internationally acclaimed, Badiucao has since had major solo exhibitions in Italy, the Czech Republic, and most recently Poland, all attracting the ire of the Chinese government.
Badiucao combines the high skill of his craftsmanship and at the same time courage, fearlessness and conviction.
Agnieszka Kolek was the deputy director of Warsaw's Ujazdowski Castle Centre for Contemporary Art during Badiucao's exhibition. The themes were confronting.
So the scandal with the baby milk, when so many children were affected and some of them died, and how it was being hidden. The COVID pandemic being denied and so many people died, and also the whistleblowers died. One of the worst is the torture chair. You can have nightmares with it.
Even before the show opened in June 2023, the centre came under fire from China.
That was the day we announced it on social media, and in the afternoon, the second man in command from the Chinese embassy came directly in person to the museum.
We were also shocked that such high official would come unannounced. He said that this exhibition of Badiucao is not good for the image of the China, and they would like this exhibition to be stopped.
The Chinese embassy even sent a letter to Poland's Ministry of Culture.
They tried all the possible pressure in order to sabotage my exhibition.
But the gallery stood firm, telling the embassy official in a face-to-face meeting that the exhibition couldn't be stopped.
Here, our position is really strong that this is art, this is not propaganda. An artist has got a right to express himself in ways that he wishes. And it's a democratic country, everyone can discuss and can criticize. We cannot prevent an artist showing his work.
A couple of weeks after the exhibition opened, Hong Kong police put bounties of $128,000 on the heads of 8 pro-democracy activists, including 2 in Australia, 1 an Australian citizen. As Badiucao prepared to fly home, he says he was advised on good authority to change his itinerary.
I got warned that the risk of transferring in a certain country is very high. So now I have to be extremely careful to choosing even airlines and the transiting countries due to this new threat.
Back in Melbourne, tonight Badiucao's at the opening of an exhibition of paintings by a fellow Chinese-Australian artist, Guo Jian. Exhibiting at this commercial gallery since 2006, the 62-year-old is a veteran when it comes to being a target of the Chinese government. His paintings are a play on Chinese propaganda art, a style he mastered after he followed in his father's footsteps and joined the People's Liberation Army as a 17-year-old. Rather than glorifying China, he exposes the harsh realities he sees.
During the COVID, you see all this kind of violence, right, towards the people, ordinary people.
And in this painting, even against loyal soldiers, like his own father, who he says trusted the Chinese system until his death from COVID, and yet wasn't even officially counted as a COVID fatality.
He died literally from the COVID. So I was really shocked China still celebrates the big success, how they contained the virus, and then didn't tell the truth about the figures. I watched that violence, censorship, all these things are happening in China.
The 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre was a defining moment for Guo Jian. A university student at the time, he joined protesters fighting for freedoms.
I think as a former soldier, as a student, that at the moment, I literally watched myself kill myself there. Those soldiers could be me, right? I don't trust this kind of government. That's the moment it's really changed my mind or changed the way of doing art as an artist.
Blacklisted after the protests, by the time he was able to emigrate to Australia in the early 1990s, his work had become political. His new home country celebrated it. His paintings depicting depravity within the PLA were awarded major prizes, acquired by national galleries and even plastered on city buildings. But in the mid-2000s, China was booming and Guo Jian was enticed back to join friends in a restaurant venture in Beijing. As an artist, he understood he had to be careful.
My message becomes subtle as well, because I don't want to get in trouble.
But the subtlety didn't last. He was unable to contain his outrage at the government's eviction of artists and demolition of their studios in the name of development.
I say, if they keep doing this demolish like this, non-stop, one day they will demolish Tiananmen Square.
So he did it himself, creating a model of the destruction of the most powerful symbol of Communist Party rule. So controversial, it remained virtually unseen in his studio. But in 2014, to mark the 25th anniversary of the highly sensitive Tiananmen Square massacre, he pushed the boundaries even further. He covered the model with 160 kilograms of pork mince and then did an interview about it, which was published in the UK's Financial Times.
So I knew I'm definitely got in trouble now.
Police swooped. His arrest and the smashing of the model made headlines around the world.
And then they put it in the handcuff, sent me to the detention center and locked me up there for 2 weeks.
He was then deported to Australia, but arriving back in Sydney after 9 years away, he says the atmosphere had changed and he could no longer escape China's repression.
Wow, I just been kicked up from China because that censorship. I go back to Australia. I just realized some of the things happening to me, it's literally the censorship extending to here, to me, right, towards me.
It was about a year after Xi Jinping came to power, and according to world-renowned China interference expert Anne-Marie Brady, Xi was paranoid about division in the Chinese Communist Party and on a mission to silence dissident artists both inside China and outside.
Art and culture have again become politically sensitive in China. The CCP really fears the overseas Chinese diaspora. They would not like them to be a nest for supporting Chinese dissidents. They wouldn't want them to be an alternative critical voice on Chinese culture.
A professor at New Zealand's University of Canterbury, she knows all too well the pressure placed on overseas critics of China.
My house and office was broken into twice, and car tampered with, and mail tampered with.
But she says she's more concerned about Chinese diaspora community organisations being taken over by the CCP.
The party has either infiltrated and sort of shaped from within the existing organisations to at least neutralise them, or created new alternative parallel organisations that are in lockstep with the embassy. For people of Chinese descent in those organisations, they are required to now follow the rules that the CCP has on what can and can't be said. And that's a really egregious example of foreign interference in our society.
Such potential interference became apparent for Guo Jian when he was commissioned in 2017 to create lanterns for the Sydney City Council's Chinese New Year celebrations. He says a Chinese sponsor removed references to Hong Kong from his CV, and the information displayed beside his lanterns was censored.
I saw that, didn't say anything related to my idea at all, only just about build up the bridge between China and Australia. I was a little upset.
City of Sydney said it received no complaint, but Guo Jian contends the concept of building a bridge between the two countries is not benign, but is used by China to demonise and silence artists like him.
I'm not the one to build a bridge or destroy the bridge at all. I'm not the one. Yeah, but if I make some different voice, and then I'll become the troublemaker and a destroyer.
Building bridges is a CCP phrase, and yes, only certain people can get on this bridge. No dissidents allowed on that bridge.
And that's why Guo Jian believes a Chinese organisation invited him to be part of an exhibition in 2022 at New South Wales Parliament House, and then told him his work had to be non-political.
I said, you already know I am the one who hates that censorship, so I'm not going to be part of this. It's one of the way how they're trying to isolate the dissident artist, make your voice disappear. I was a propaganda officer. I know this kind of a tactic.
The organisers didn't respond to these claims, but Guo Jian says he doesn't hold anything against them.
They still have family back in China. They don't want to get in trouble. If those people invited to the embassy, they've definitely been told, don't let those bad apples into that. Right? They are national or state enemies now.
The labelling of dissident artists as enemies is all part of China's well-honed influence strategy, according to Badiucao.
They're very good at mixing the idea between criticism against Chinese government and discrimination against Chinese people. All the time, the Chinese government will call me anti-China artist. They will call me sometimes even racist, even though I am born in China.
And like Guo Jian, he believes this is how China is able to cancel their voices in Australia.
Good people here do not want to be associated with the idea of being a racist, xenophobia. So all of those elements was adding into terrible self-censorship. And the result is I just simply cannot have a fair shot in our community here.
Badiucao's come to Melbourne's home for street art, Hosier Lane, popular with tourists, including from China.
So I want to bring the same poster from Poland to here, this cruel dictator, which is consuming the future of its children.
It's the only place in Australia the artist says he's able to exhibit his work.
I've been struggling in Australia to have a share opportunity like what I would have in Europe. I've been waiting for so long to have a proper exhibition.
He says even small commercial galleries are reluctant to give him a break. In 2020, the owner of this Sydney gallery wanted him removed from a group show after learning of China's threats before his Hong Kong exhibition, leading Badiucao to withdraw his work.
So this is how much the gallery owners or the curators or directors are facing this kind of fear. And most of the time they choose to protect themselves instead of defending the freedom of art.
The gallery owner didn't comment, but Badiucao believes a lot comes down to Australia's economic dependence on its biggest trading partner.
A lot of people are worrying about losing China's big market to a point that there's just no courage for government-funded or public-funded institutions. They will be worried about backlash from the Chinese government.
Guo Jian suspects that could be a reason leading public galleries that collected his work in the 1990s and early 2000s now seem uninterested, particularly in his internationally infamous Tiananmen Square model.
It's a really part of the history. I thought at least one of the public galleries should get one of my photo of that work, be part of the collections. But literally is nothing.
Since the Xi era began, the price of doing business in China is that you are silent on political aspects. So you could have people working within organisations who will push for that because of other interests that they have to protect.
From 2017 to 2020, the National Gallery of Victoria, or NGV, enjoyed a partnership with Australia and China-based property developer Golden Age Group. The group's owner, Jeff Zhu, has deep ties to a China Overseas Friendship Association, which operates under the country's United Front Work Department, notorious for foreign interference. In 2019, Golden Age sponsored an NGV exhibition of China's ancient terracotta warriors and works by internationally renowned Tai Guo-cheng, who designed the fireworks for Beijing's 2008 Olympics and 2022 Winter Olympics. For Badiucao, the exhibition was galling.
He is this artist totally collaborating with the Chinese government. So to me, having that kind of exhibition, it's a pure propaganda.
When it was on, he and an Australian Hong Kong group tried to hire a venue at the gallery for a panel discussion about art and resistance. The high-profile Hong Kong musician and pro-democracy activist, Denise Ho, who is blacklisted by China, was to be a special guest.
We proposed our requirement and they told us the venue has the availability and they want us to wait one day and say they will do an internal discussion about it.
But the NGV rejected the event, citing security concerns. In protest, Badiucao redesigned the poster for the NGV's exhibition and uploaded it onto social media.
It was really a huge disappointment because I believe big art institution like this is supposed to be the defender for the freedom of art. Yes, of course you have the freedom to show in terracotta warrior and the Chinese propaganda artist, but in the same time, you should allow different voices to be on the same stage so that the audience here will truly see it from different perspectives.
Chinese authorities, the NGV and Jeff Zhu didn't respond to allegations raised in this program. Badiucao is now weighing up his future in Australia.
Given the difficulty of continuing my art career here, maybe in the future I'll have to make a decision to leave here and resettle in a different country, which will not be easy because I do love everything here so much, but this might have to be a decision I must make if the situation in our community does not change.
Surrounded by Badiucao's work at the Public Gallery in Warsaw, Agnieszka Kolek delivers a strong message to Australia.
Artists are very good barometers of issues that at first they might seem really small and unimportant, but then with time they can grow into something that is really threatening. And I think here with Badiucao highlighting the issues of lack of human rights in China shows that if you go to business with the Chinese regime, you can expect that sooner or later you will be treated in the same way as the citizens. So you're actually endangering the security of your own country.
Next week on 101 East, we investigate allegations of China's influence over one of Australia's leading orchestras.